Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the most profound things that you did as a commissioner, because you acted as a commissioner for a number of things, and one of the most tragic stories that you had to deal with many witnesses, heard horrific stories, and this was the inquiry of missing women that disproportionately really focused on Aboriginal women who were missing and murdered. And just recently, Robert Pickton, the notorious killer, got street justice in a jail, and he was killed. He was in a coma, slipped away. Some some deserve that this was justice served
Yeah.
in a jail cell. But do you feel what is the role of justice for these
Well,
people?
first of all, Pickton was the most prolific killer in Canadian history.
Yes.
He admitted killing 49 women.
Yeah.
We think he killed probably closer to 100.
Yeah. Well, the remains were there.
Right. So uh, after he was convicted and sentenced, the many group, particularly the indigenous groups,
Yes.
cried out for justice. Say,
Yes.
what happened? Why was he allowed to get away with this?
Yeah.
How did he conduct illegal activities
Yeah.
under the noses of the police? So the government appointed me as a commissioner to do a complete investigation and an inquiry.
Right.
So that took 3 years. We had many days of public hearings, and we heard from over 100 witnesses.
Yes.
We went into the villages of the north
Yeah.
along Highway 16, went into Gitnao, Kitwanga, Morristown,
Okay.
Hazelton, and
Yeah.
we interviewed and spoke to the indigenous communities.
Yes.
And we learned very quickly that one of the reasons that Pickton was permitted to get away with his illegal activities was nobody paid attention
Because he was a white guy.
to the vulnerable people.
Yeah.
And most of them were drug addicted.
Yeah.
They were often poor,
Marginalized. Yeah.
indigenous,
Yes.
and so they became sex trade workers, and nobody cared for them. So Pickton took advantage of that, and the police made many errors by not taking the complaints of the parents, the mothers who came to the police and complained about their daughters being missing. Nobody cared.
Nobody cared. And well, you actually served on another committee to reform the Policing Act.
Yes.
As well. So in terms of these recommendations, and here we are, fast forward to 2024, there's still violence against marginalized people on the Lower East Side. There is a lot of upset, right? Like so, if you look at the police departments, VPD, RCMP, you've got the security agencies. A lot of people feel targeted by their race, their gender, their political leanings, all of these things, and it becomes a complicated issue. I think one of the things that you've always been a proponent of, and I've always been a proponent of, is that the police force should be reflective of the community that's being policed, much like government, much like every facet in life. So how do we achieve that?
Well, the first inquiry in policing I did was in the 90s. And that was one of the issues. What should be the makeup of the police? And as you quite correctly stated, if any institution is going to have credibility, then it has to, in some way, reflect the general makeup of the population.
Correct.
So if you have a population that is 40% visible minority, maybe we should strive towards that, to have policing and the medical profession, the legal profession, and business, academia, in some way generally reflect the general makeup of the community. And so we recommended that strongly in the report that we put in 1994. The report is called Closing the Gap, closing the gap between the police and the community. So a lot of good things have come out of that, and we're moving forward. But the system, as you point out, is not perfect.
It is.
There's still too many police forces. A lot of the issues fall between the
communication too.
Exactly.
They're missing and they're stepping over each other.
That's right. And that's what happened in Pickton.
Yeah.
The women were being taken from the downtown east side of Vancouver, an area policed by the VPD, Vancouver Police Department, and they were taken to Coquitlam, where they were murdered on the Pickton farm, and that's an area policed by the RCMP. They didn't share information. Had they shared information, a lot of the lives have been saved. So we recommended strongly that there be some kind of regional policing system where the police work together, the different agencies work together, so they can share information. And that's in every serial killer that's ever come down the road over the years, from Clifford Olson to Bernardo to...
Sure. Well, Clifford Olson, when I was a child, I was in elementary school, like when Clifford Olson was on that rampage.
That's right.
And reading those accounts of what happened to those kids, I really felt that was a defining moment for a whole generation of us, because we realized nobody's safe.
Well, the kids were vulnerable.
They were kids.
Kids were taken advantage of. Nobody cared for them. And you have multiple police forces.
And
all involved in the investigation, not sharing information. And it took some time before they apprehended him. The same thing happened to Pickton. Pickton was caught quite fortuitously, because what had happened was he was a suspect, but there wasn't enough work done on the ground to actually go and arrest him. So what happened was that there was a rookie constable named Nathan Wells, and he was looking for weapons. So someone told him there were illegal weapons
on
at the Pickton farm.
Yes.
So he went to the Pickton farm with a search warrant to look for weapons.
Yes.
Lo and behold, he found the remains of women there.
Oh.
And that's what happened in 2002.
Yes.
And the women started disappearing in the 80s.
In the 80s. So the number is many times being reported.
So tragic mistakes were made. And we think, as a result of the inquiry that we did, that a lot of changes have been made. At one stage, when women would go missing, would go to the police to report a missing daughter or a son, the police would simply say, well, there's no law against going missing. What do you expect us to do?
What do you expect? They'll be back. They'll turn up tomorrow or the next day.
Right. Well, now, as a result of our inquiry, if there's a vulnerable child or woman that goes missing,
you get
police have a mandatory duty to conduct an investigation and report back to the families. So things have changed. There's more cooperation now between policing agencies, but maybe there's still too many police forces.
I think there needs to be more cohesion. Even having a number of departments or having stuff specifically for the Indigenous and Aboriginal peoples, liaisons, psychiatric health workers,